Now, many North East primary schools are reopening this week. Maybe today you've dropped off those little darlings with a wave and they went into school with a spring in their step. Or you could be in the house with teenagers who are allegedly doing work online. It's a huge mixed bag, isn't it? Continuing rows over whether pupils should return with the COVID restrictions which are currently in place. And there's uncertainty over how many classes could be closed after advice from teachers' unions that it's not safe for staff to be in school. And some councils, including Sunderland, South Tyneside and North Tyneside here in the North East, gave teachers their backing to close schools if they thought it was best. But is it right that individual head teachers are having to make the decisions to close the schools? Well, I've been talking to Jane Davis, the head teacher of Lanchester Primary in County Durham. She decided over the weekend that closing her school was the only option. I asked her to tell me a little bit more about that decision.
It's been a hideous weekend, to be honest. Obviously, we've been keeping up to speed with all of the information that's been coming out. We were surprised when there was a U-turn about the London schools on Friday evening. So we heard about that. And then the unions, both the teaching unions and the support unions, were in contact with heads over the weekend on Saturday, as with the local authority. And to be honest, I suppose I expected another announcement from the DfE. That didn't come. And the local authority, I know, had lots of meetings yesterday morning, which was Sunday, about the situation. And the decision that we made, both myself and the Chair of Governors, was yesterday lunchtime. We had to make a decision to give parents just a little bit of notice. It's a nightmare for parents. Fully appreciate that. But we just felt we had no alternative but to close the school.
And was the biggest factor then what the teaching unions had to say, or were you speaking to colleagues at other schools? What was the thought process there?
It was a mixture of everything. Obviously, there's a mixture of a complete mixture of messages coming from SAGE, from the experts, and there's a lot of confusion around the government communication with their guidance to schools. SAGE are telling the public that it's unsafe for schools to be open. The government are telling us that it's perfectly safe for schools to open. So I think then when you're getting such a barrage of mixed messages from the people at the top, you have to kind of look into it a little bit yourselves. And I think for us as a school, we had a number of meetings with head teachers in the cluster yesterday as well. We looked at our own transmission rates. We realised that statistics say that children don't get particularly poorly with the virus, but it's their ability to transmit the virus to those members of the community and the household at home. So looking at that and how much of an increase Lanchester has had just in the last 7 days, and those figures are still out of date, that alongside a huge number of emails that I received from parents over the weekend, either stating that they were waiting for test results or that their whole family had tested positive. I've got 7 members of staff who had either tested positive or who had to isolate because of being in contact with others. It's huge at the moment, and it's far worse than it was in June. It's far worse than it was in September. And I suppose the Chair of Governors and myself decided that we've got a duty to the community to safeguard them all. And I suppose that, along with, we were waiting for the local authority to produce a statement for us as well, to advise us. And their support, they said they would support schools whatever decision they made. But it was after we looked at our risk assessment yesterday, lunchtime, we just said we cannot safely open the school anymore.
Do you know when they say to you, Jane, that they'll support you in that decision, they're still allowing the school and yourselves and the head teachers and the cluster of head teachers to make that decision? Did you find that helpful, or would it have been better to have guidance from the council to say this is what we think, rather than we will support you in whatever you want to do?
I think for a county council it's very hard because schools are quite unique in their areas, and there are some. I would believe that there are some sort of smaller schools, sort of in the rural areas, that perhaps have very low rates at the moment. So It's a tricky one. I don't think one size necessarily suits all. However, that kind of goes against what I do think, because, we are in a Tier 4 area. So I do feel that a Tier 4 area, it's more or less a lockdown. And schools, I think, whether we like it or not, are, when you put so many children, we've got 425 children. When you put 425 children and sets of parents together in a sort of a tight community, it's bound to transmit. And I think this new variant, because there's so much still unknown about it, it is quite frightening at the moment. Sort of how quickly it is being passed from one person to another.
So
parents. Oh, sorry.
So I was going to say, you had your, you made the decision yesterday. You had your conversations with the rest of the cluster of head teachers that you work with.
Yeah.
And there are some schools who are having an inset day today. And at the moment, they're online. The plan is that they'll open their doors tomorrow. Do you think we'll hear of more closures before they're due to go back tomorrow? Do you think things are going to change again for more schools in the next 24 hours?
I wouldn't be at all surprised if there is some kind of announcement, whether it's today or whether it's this week. But I wouldn't be surprised if yes, more schools close and make that decision themselves, or sort of follow a decision from on top. I would expect more to close. I think schools are always in the firing line, and it's teachers. We want nothing more than to be at school and for life to be normal. We want the children to be able to come to school. I've always said it's the best place for them, and I stand by that. It absolutely is the best place for them. However, I think at the moment we've got to just assess the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is that we just feel it's not safe.
What about the students, 420 pupils who should be starting the third term of their academic year? We've heard, the school doors are closed, but learning's still taking place. How have you managed to facilitate that, and how will you, over the past few months, and how will you continue to do that for this term?
Yeah. We've had to close totally today because we needed time to sort of just get organisation into place. We will be emailing parents today, and from tomorrow we've got a very sturdy remote learning policy in place, as most schools have. And we will be delivering 3 live lessons a day. We will be having a timetable that we would like children to follow, but we will have that understanding that actually parents are being asked to do the impossible. They're asked to juggle childcare, to juggle their own work from home, and to sort of educate their children. So we do understand that it's not the ideal position for everybody, but we've got a mixture of online learning and we've got work packs for children to take home. So that's all in place.
That's Jane Davis from Lanchester.